intro this. Okay. And 3, 2, 1. What is up, everybody? And welcome. This is live on Twitch, but I'm also going to be posting this later on YouTube. I'm going to be going through every single Witchwood card from the new Hearthstone expansion and just giving my thoughts on it, both for standard and wild. I will be rating a card out of 5. So let's get started. I'll also try to go through these very fast. For those watching on YouTube later, this is live, so I may be having discussions with chat if somebody actually wants to give their 2 cents on it. And excuse me, we should be ready to go. First card, we're gonna start off with Druid. Ferocious Howl. Simple 3 mana, draw a card, gain 1 armor for each card in your hand. In the best situation, this is a 3 mana, draw 1, gain 10 armor. And that is the best situation. So that sounds pretty great, but then you realize realistically, this is a 3 mana, draw a card, gain 4 armor or 5 armor, plus there's better ways to gain armor, and for 1 mana extra, you can have a guarantee to draw a card, gain 6 armor. So, I don't know, this card is pretty bad. In standard, it's 1 out of 5. And, spoiler, wild, it's also 1 out of 5. Nothing special, pretty trash card. I don't want to waste more time on this, so we're gonna move on. Next card, we have Bewitched Guardian, another hand druid card. 5 mana, 4/1. Taunt, Battlecry, gain 1 health for each card in your hand. Well, once again, odd hand druid, not looking too great, and I'll get a bit into that later. It's 5 mana. Ideally, this is a 5 mana, 4/10 taunt. Actually, 4/9, because you're playing this from your hand. So, for 5, that's pretty good. But once again, realistically, this is nowhere near close to that. And it's just Twilight Drake with taunt slapped on it. You're paying 1 extra mana for taunt. That's definitely not worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 out of 5 for standard, 1 out of 5 for wild. This will not see play. Play Twilight Drake instead. You will actually get your mana's worth for that. So moving on, we have Druid of the Scythe. I feel really bad for Druid players, man. This card's okay for token, I guess. Is there even token? Is there even going to be a token deck in Witchwood? I don't think so personally. But even if there is, this card's pretty bad. 3 mana, 2/4 taunt. Well, you can instead play Phantom Militia, and 3 mana, 4/2 rush doesn't seem that great if you compare it to something like Militia Commander, which is what Warrior is getting for 1 mana more. You just get a total of 4 stats more. So this card isn't really looking too great. We're going to continue with the trend. 1 out of 5, 1 out of 5 once again. Cards like this, I don't want to waste too much time because there's better cards out there. So, moving on to Splintergraft. 8 mana, 8/8 legendary. Choose a friendly minion, add a 10/10 copy to your hand that costs 10. This card's pretty bad, honestly. I don't know what deck this fits into. I guess you can have a 10 mana charging Stone Tusk Boar. Anything else you assume survives the turn, which is pretty bad. Honestly, I feel like this card's trash, and there's no reason you should play it. I'm sorry, Druids. Another 1 out of 5 for both wild and standard. Okay. So, the next legendary, 5 mana 3/7 Duskfallen Aviana. On each player's turn, the first card played costs 0. So, the problem with that is, guess what? The Aviana is your first card played. That means your opponent gets to utilize this first. Also, hello, chat. You can't realistically believe that if your opponent gets a 0 mana card on turn 6 or higher, this will survive. So, hey, it's a pretty bad card. Surprise, surprise. 1 out of 5. 1 out of 5. So, there we go. Pretty sure that's what I've rated every card up to now. That's fantastic. And now we actually get to the good row of Druid cards. Starting with Witching Hour. I think this is by far the best Druid card in the expansion. I'm going to go ahead and say that. And the reason this is so great, if you compare this to Eternal Servitude, which is a 4 mana discover a friendly minion that died and summon it, this actually, in a sense, takes away the discover requirement through the beast tag. And it is a mix between Resurrect and Eternal Servitude, to the point where it's not completely RNG, like Resurrect, but it's also not Discover, like Eternal Servitude. And I think this is why this card is fantastic. It's literally balanced in between 2 and 4 at 3 mana, and there's so many good big beasts you can have in a Druid deck. This will definitely be in Big Druid. And honestly, the thing is, you can tag this into any Druid deck that has a slightly large beast. Playing 3 mana for anything that costs 5 or more mana is completely viable. So this card is pretty fantastic. In Standard, I think it sadly only gets a 3 out of 5 because there is a limited amount of big beasts you can have. But in Wild, I do think this is a 5 out of 5 card due to all the synergy and all the decks you can run it with. So, really good card. And moving on, we have Forest Guide. We're starting to move on into even hand Druid cards, and I do think even hand Druid will be a deck. Will it be tier 3, tier 2, tier 1? I think it's going to be tier 2. But it's clear it's going to be a deck, and I think even is the way to go, because again, you can get that 1 mana hero power, play between turns, so the viability comes from that. As for this specific card, at the end of your turn, both players draw a card. Theoretically, your opponent gets to use the card first, but if you're playing hand Druid, you benefit more from drawing than your opponent. 4 mana 1/6 also isn't too great. And even in even hand Druid, I think this will just be a 1-of. So for that, in Standard, I have to go with a 2 out of 5. There's no way hand Druid will be viable in Wild. Wild has a much higher power in terms of decks. It will just be a gimmick. So for Wild, I do need to go with a 1 out of 5. But overall, this card is pretty bad, but I believe it fits into an archetype that will be good. So in a way, the archetype will be carrying the card. So that's that. And now, moving on to some actual good cards. Witchwood Apple, add 3 2/2 Trents to your hand. And those are 2 mana 2/2s. So, originally, I saw this card and I'm like, this card's really trash. And now I look at this card and I'm like, this card's actually pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and put up the scores. 3 for Standard, 1 for Wild. This will lead to the creation of this new archetype. And Wild, once again, gimmick. But for Standard, this is a 2 mana add 2 cards to your hand, which when playing Twilight Drake or Mountain Giant really helps. And I think that's all that needs to be said. With that logic, we're going up to Whispering Woods. Once again, same rating for the same reason. This does basically make up the hand Druid archetype as an individual card, it's definitely not that powerful. But when you put the whole archetype together, this really does carry that archetype. And it sits at 4 mana, summon a 1/1 Wisp for each card in your hand. You can flood the board with just having 8 cards in hand, which I think is pretty interesting. Since using the apple, you can get to that number pretty early. So, really good card, and I think this does carry the archetype, but sadly, once again, a gimmick in Wild. Moving on to our final card, Gloomstag. It's a pretty bad card. Odd Druid won't be a thing. And the reason I say that is because all the good, if you can call them Hand Druid cards, are even hello there, General Kenobi. But yeah, I don't know. Before I move on, if chat wants to say something, I can revisit certain cards, but I think Druid is pretty self-explanatory. To recap, I do think the best card for Druid is Witching Hour, with Whispering Woods coming in second. And we move on right now to Hunter. Okay, Hunter has a very interesting set of cards. Let's start with Valbred Skitter. Not gonna lie, it's a pretty bad card. I don't think there's much to discuss. It's a 5 mana 1/3. If you compare this card to Assassinate, Valspine Slayer, even Execute, it's worse than all of that. So, nothing more to say. It's just a bad card. Beast Tag doesn't do anything, and yeah. It's all good. I'm just going through this stream to basically keep myself awake. Plus, I wanted to do it in a while. So, okay, moving on. Carrion Drake. Once again, tag is basically meaningless. Hunter doesn't really have dragon synergy. But, Battle Cry. If a minion died this turn, gain poisonous. 5 mana 3/7 by itself is not a terrible stat line. 5 mana 3/7 with a poisonous, because you can usually guarantee that the minion dies. It's a good stat line for poisonous. Before I grade this, let me just compare two cards. 5 mana 1/3 poisonous. 5 mana 3/7 poisonous. I just look at these two cards next to each other, and I really do question what they were thinking. I will give this card a 3 out of 5 for standard, and the reason I'm giving it such a bad score is it's a really good card, but I don't see it fitting in any deck, and for Wild, it's gonna get 2 out of 5 for the same reason. Once again, really good card, but where do you put this in? You don't put it in mid-range, you don't put it in face, where do you put it in? Next, we move on to Dire Frenzy. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't take off the ratings. Dire Frenzy is 4 mana, give a beast +3/+3, shuffle 3 copies into your deck with +3/+3. Okay, well, the interesting thing about this card is that on paper, it looks good, and then you realize you need to actually draw the cards. If you compare this to something like Faldois Strider, 4 mana 4/4, basically shuffle 3 4/4s into your deck that when drawn are automatically played. This is trash card. Why is the 3/5 still there? I'm sorry. Oh, what? I removed this instead. My bad. So, this is on paper bad. You actually need to draw the cards as well. I don't see it being viable in either standard or on Wild, but I will give it a 2 out of 5 on standard. If we get, and we might get Quest Hunter back, I guess they would run this, but that's sad to say. This card looked like it had potential, but turns out to not be good enough. Rat Trap. Ooh boy, there are mixed thoughts on this card. The first argument is that it's a 2 mana do nothing, because it's really easy to play around it and not play 3 cards per turn. The counter argument to that is that you basically block your opponent for the whole game if they're actually trying to play around it. I think it's somewhere in between. You can play around it until you can deal with the 6/6. I don't think this card is that great. You may have a 1-of in Spell Hunter, but in Wild, it's just outclassed by other secrets. And in Standard, I don't think it will see much play, maybe in Spell Hunter, but it's not too great of a card. It sounds great, 2 mana 6/6, until you realize it's a 2 mana get a 6/6 8 turns later. So that's not too great. Moving on to Wing Blast. This is going to be one of the best cards of the set. And if you think about it, it's a 1 mana deal 4. Deal 4 damage to a minion. If a minion died, this costs 1. So to me, that screams 1 mana deal 4. It's so easy to have a minion die. And even in the worst case scenario, like if you're so desperate that you're playing a 4 mana deal 4, you're probably that desperate that this is still helpful. In Wild, I'm not sure what this would fit into, so it gets a 2 out of 5, even though the card is insane. In Standard, I'm torn between 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5. But I'm gonna go with a 4 out of 5 for the sole purpose that, once again, this doesn't fit that great into current meta decks. Spell Hunter would be the most obvious choice to run this, but then you realize Spell Hunter doesn't have that many minions dying, and then mid-range would rather run a lot of other cards than this. So Kill Command is technically better than this. It's a better top deck since you can hit face. This just hits a minion. So while this is a fantastic and an insane card, it just doesn't fit the way it should in the meta. Very disappointed though. I wish this card fit into a deck. Then we have Toxmonger. Great card for Quest Hunter, except Quest Hunter won't really be a thing. This card's a 1 out of 5. I don't want to spend a lot of time. 4 mana 2/4 is a terrible stat line. Give Poisonous to a 1-cost minion. Too bad Alley Cat rotated out. Though, I don't know. This card's really bad. In the basic scenario, you're paying at least 5 mana for a 2/4 and a small poisonous minion, which once again begs the question, why in the world is Vileblood Skitter a thing? Anyway, this card's really bad. Won't see play. Duskhaven Hunter. Speaking of bad cards, it's bad. It's really bad. You can't realistically fit this into anything. And 3 mana 5/2 stealth without a beast stag, not gonna work out. 3 mana 2/5 stealth is a joke. Why would you ever play a 2/5 with stealth? So this card's just bad. Moving on, Amaris, double the attack and health of all minions in your hand. I totally forgot this card was even in the set. And 10 mana that doesn't instantly impact the board. It's not going to see play. And that's what people were saying about N'Zoth. The difference is N'Zoth does have an impact, just it takes 1 turn to happen. Same could be said about this card, except it will take at least 2 turns to have any effect on the board, which is too slow for a 10 mana card. Moving on. We have Hunting Mastiff. Really bad card. I'm sorry I'm going through so fast through all of these, but they're all just terrible cards. 2 mana 2/1. Terrible stat line. Rush is okay. Still not worth paying for it. Echo is overpriced. Just because you can play something multiple times doesn't mean it's a good card. So, overpriced card. Houndmaster Shaw. Your other minions have Rush. This card is actually really good. And believe this is the first 5-star. I'm pretty sure. I think Witching Hour and Wild was the first 5-star, like 5 out of 5 card. But hey, this card is insane. 4 mana 3/6 isn't the bad stat line in the first place. And then if you look beyond that, just having Rush on all your beasts it's not even restricted to beasts, it's all minions. You just get to have a really good mid-range and Face Hunter. Face Hunter not so much, I think this is better in mid-range. But even Face could run this. Generally any aggressive Hunter deck runs this and is happy. Really good card. Hey Pestilus, what's up? I'm kind of jet lagged, so I'm trying to keep myself awake, and there's a new Hearthstone expansion coming tomorrow, so I'm literally reviewing every single card. Moving on to Mage. Oh god, Snap Freeze. Just because something is a power creep doesn't make the card good. Freeze a minion. If it's already frozen, destroy it. I did say hi. You were just AFK'd from chat. So, this card's still bad and will always be. You should never have to pay 2 mana to freeze a minion. 1 out of 5. So next, we have a very interesting card. Some people say Curio is good. Some people say Curio is bad. 5 mana, 4/4. Whenever you draw a card, +1/+1. I think this card's pretty bad. I will give it a. It will definitely see experimentation. That's why it gets a 2 out of 5 in standard. But people are gonna realize how bad it is, and the reason this card is bad is because you're basically playing a 5 mana 4/4 with an upside, but that upside usually takes at least 1 turn to happen, so you can't guarantee this survives. And even if you get that upside on the turn you play this by comboing it with another card, you're paying too much mana for the effect in a single turn. So, bad card. Still, we'll see experimentation. Moving on, we have Cinderstorm. Deal 5 damage, randomly split among all enemies. Why is this a card? I don't need to say much. Remember Arcane Missiles? Are deal 3 split, and it's 1 mana. Who came up with this? That's my question. Not gonna waste more time. Arcane Keysmith. Discover a secret, put it into the battlefield. Definitely going to be a 2 on both. This is just a okay tempo card. It's not the greatest, but it does have value. It's basically a secret bundled with a 2/2, meaning that it's fairly priced at 4. So, not really any complaint for it. It's an okay card. It's just there's much higher value cards. Like, this is what I would describe as a fair card, except fair isn't good enough anymore. Bonfire Elemental. Speaking of fair cards, okay. If you played an Elemental last turn, draw a card. 5 mana, 5/5 Elemental. Oh, this is a fantastic card. 4 out of 5 in standard. I'm giving cards low ratings when they're essential in decks. Are you talking about Keysmith? I disagree that it's essential. I can go and look back at it. This card's really good. There's going to be an odd Elemental Mage, which is a Rising deck. Wild, not as much, because Elemental Mage really can't compete with top Wild decks. But in standard, 5 mana, 5/5, draw a card. Just seems insane. It also keeps the Elemental tag. So, a 1? You mean a 1 copy? So, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that this card's really good. I think it's self-explanatory. Okay. Okay. I don't understand if this is a joke or if you're memeing or if you're being serious, because this card is not good. Okay. And I can actually talk about bundling and why this card is pretty bad. This card is basically bundling less than 2 arcane thingies together. And since each one is deal 3 and then it's deal 2, bundling is usually valued at 1 mana per every 2 mana you're bundling. So you're basically doing 1 mana and then 2/3 of a mana, so that's a total of 1 mana and 2/3 of a mana. And you're paying an extra 1 mana and 1/3 for the bundle, which is technically 2/3 more than you should be paying. So this card is literally bad. Moving on to Archmage Arugal. Whenever you draw a minion, add a copy of it to your hand. People are like, wow, this card's insane. There's so much you can do with it, except you then realize that this needs to survive to get value. I'm not saying this isn't a good card. It's a really good card because you can basically combo it with a lot of things, but people who are calling this a 5 out of 5 card don't understand that you can't combo it in every situation. Arcane Intellect, or the book we're going to look at after this, synergize with this card, but you're not guaranteed to draw minions, and even if you do, you don't get instant pressure off this. You just get extra cards to play in your hand. So, nevertheless, this is actually a good card. 4 out of 5 in Standard, 3 out of 5 in Wild. I don't think it will see that much play in Wild, just because tempo minion-based Mage isn't that popular, even though it's a really good card in Standard. Maybe if Mage gets 1 or 2 more draw cards, this would be a 5 out of 5, but the fact that there will be a lot of situations where you just get a bad draw, and then this just dies, means that it's not the best card. 5 out of 5 cards usually are cards that are good no matter what when played, in my eyes at least. Speaking of 5 out of 5 cards, Book of Specters. This is just too good of a card to not rate 5 out of 5 everything. The reason Book of Specters is so good is because discarding means nothing. Discarding has no effect on your gameplay, because discarding the top card of your deck is like discarding the bottom card of your deck. So basically, what matters is how many cards you draw. Let's look at the scenarios. 2 mana, draw 3, incredibly busted, 6 out of 5 card. 2 mana, draw 2 is still 1 mana less than Arcane Intellect, which is still a really good card. Then 2 mana, draw 1 is not great, but it's still passable. So why is this card so good? Well, if you have 8 spells in your deck, this is a 2 mana, draw 2.21 on average. If you have 10 spells in your deck, this is a 2 mana, draw 2. If you're playing this in a tempo-focused deck, which has 8 or less spells, you will be drawing 2 spells most of the time, and a decent amount you will be drawing 2 cards most of the time, and at a decent amount you will be drawing 3 cards. Excuse me. So, on average, this will be better than Arcane Intellect, and then a bit less than average, it will be an incredible, insane card, and then very few times you will have it be a not so good card but still passable card. So overall, this card just ends up being an average between a really good card and a fantastic card, which means it's just incredible. So, not much more explanation needed there. Let's move on. I've been spending a bit of time on some of these, so I'm gonna be going faster through some bad cards. Speaking of bad cards, Toki Time Tinkerer only brings in legendaries from Wild. Legendaries are valued as 0.5 of a card. 6 mana, 5/5, draw 0.5 is literally trash compared to what we saw earlier of 5 mana, 5/5, draw 1. Vex Crow. Interesting card. People are saying this is one of the best mage cards, especially in a minion-based deck. I would have to fully agree. 5 out of 5 in standard, 4 out of 5 in wild, just because I'm not sure how much this mage deck will be successful in wild. Basically, this is a better Violet teacher. You're playing a 4-mana 3/3, but instead of 1/1s, you're getting 2 drops. So unlucky situation would be Doomsayer, but everything else is very valuable. And you're just getting so much value out of this card. Not much more to say. Black Cat. Very lucky card. I mean, it's 2 mana less Azure Drake. You get 1/1 less, and it's a beast instead of a dragon. And requires odd cost cards. Well, odd mage is definitely a thing, so the odd requirement is out of the window. You draw a card for a 3 mana 3/3 and get spell damage +1. This card is honestly just insane. The reason I'm putting 4 out of 5 in wild is because I don't think odd and even decks will be viable in wild. Remember, you're trying to outvalue decks like Jade Druid and Giant's Lock. This card isn't enough to do it, sadly. But for standard, it's really busted. Moving on to Paladin. You have Hidden Wisdom. Not gonna waste time. Sorry. Same reason as Rat Trap. Terrible card. And drawing 2 cards is valued less than a 6/6. So this is even worse. Prince Liam. See, this is actually 5 out of 5 for both standard and wild. This is an auto-include in Yes Paladin. You know that when a card is auto-included in Yes Paladin, it's actually very viable, and in case you couldn't get the joke, this is actually a 1 out of 5 for both standard and wild, because if Yes Paladin wants to play a card, you know that card is trash. Ghostly Charger, XD. Not much more to say. I should have kept that 1 out of 5 up, because we have a crazy card here. Crazy. Look at this. 8 mana, 3/4 weapon, way too highly priced, giving your minions +1/+1. This would assume you have at least 3 minions every turn to be efficient. There's no way that's gonna happen. So, not good enough. Play a 7 mana, summon recruits instead. Paragon of Light, it's not trash. It's bad, but at the end of the day, it's not trash. So, it can work. That's all I'm gonna say. It's definitely something that has some limited potential. Taunt and Lifesteal is really important. 3 mana 2/5 is okay stats. The problem is getting that 3 or more attack. It's really not that hard to if you buff it once. So we'll have to see. I think this will definitely see experimentation. So I'm gonna leave it at a 2 out of 5 because I want to be safe. Last Night. Oh god, this card is all over the place. Legendary 4 mana 4/3. When you restore health, gain Divine Shield, and it already starts off with Divine Shield. As a baseline, a 4 mana 4/3 Divine Shield isn't bad. The chance to gain more is even better. I will go ahead and give this card a very generous 4 out of 5. 3 out of 5 to that extent in wild. And we'll see. We'll see. I think this card has a lot of potential because it's just a really good card, but I don't see what deck plays it and what deck utilizes the healing. Bellringer Sentry. 4 out of 5. 2 out of 5 been wild. Simple. Wild has a better card that has a better effect. Standard doesn't. Secrets are really good, especially if you're getting 2 of them for free. 4 mana, 3/4 once again isn't the most terrible base stats for a 4 mana. It's pretty bad, but considering that you're getting 2 secrets directly from your deck, that's really good. I disagree with people saying this is the best Paladin card though. You'll see why. Okay. Cathedral Gargoyle. If you're holding a dragon, gain Taunt and Divine Shield. This card's insane. When people thought this, they thought it was busted. Then people questioned the synergy. Once they saw no dragon released, they said, oh, it's bad. But then you realize how many neutral dragons you have. And if you think about how decks played patches, the biggest example is Valera Vanish Miracle Rogue included 2 Swashbucklers and no other pirate card in order to play patches. This would mean that all you would have to do for Paladin to basically get an equivalent is just include 3 dragons, and on average you will be getting a 2 mana 2/2 Taunt Divine Shield. Same thing goes for Wild. Wild even easier because you have more dragons to synergize with. So this card just ends up being insane. Sound the bells because this card is trash. 1/1/2 is valued at 1 mana. Echo is worth less than 1 mana. The more times you play this card, the worse it is. So, I'm sorry about that. Basically, you just don't want to play it. Just the fact that you can split it doesn't mean anything. If you want 4 mana, play Blessing of Kings. Then you can even play Dino Size, etc., etc. This card's not... I didn't put the wild thing up. 1 out of 5. Bad card. Rebuke Loatheb on a spell. Really like this card. Thought it would be more OP than it was, but it really isn't. Aggro can benefit from it in standard. Dude Paladin will probably run it as a 1/of. Wild, you have Loatheb. I don't know why you would be running this over Loatheb. Self-explanatory. Oh boy, we're 40 minutes in, and I'm only done with 4 classes. I might split this video up. I might do, I'll definitely do class cards today. And then I will probably do neutrals. Oh, but I'll be gone, huh? Okay, I'll see what I'll do. Squashling. Terrible card. I'll start speeding through a bunch of these because I am limited on time. 2 mana 2/1 once again is not worth echoing regardless of effect. And they showed a bunch of things on stream, but none of those situations are realistic. The deck that played this and won on stream was playing against another trash deck. Quartz Elemental, 5 mana 5/8. We'll see experimentation. Not good enough in any way. There's no elemental synergy with Priest and a 5 mana 5/8. And Rage can't attack is bad. I'm literally keeping this because we're moving to this Drake. This is 3/5. 7 mana 4/9 dragon. Whenever minion is healed, summon 3/3 whelp. People have been saying that this card's insane with Lady in White. We're gonna have to start talking about that. Every card is insane with Lady in White. A 7 mana 4/9 is just a bad card by itself. Healing something for a 3/3 whelp, you're basically saying you're paying 2 mana for a 3/3, but you've already paid some of that mana up front since you're playing a 7 mana 4/9. This card is okay, but not better than okay. Okay, well, play Circle of Healing instead. Just play Circle of Healing instead. Crip is salty, this card is bad. Deal 4 damage, price at 5 mana is terrible. If you're killing an aggro minion, it's useless for you. If you're killing another control minion, then you're not playing this on turn 5, meaning it's just a waste. This card's really good, just for the spying aspect. I disagree that you want to be playing it in decks like Spiteful, but in general, it's a really good card. You can check your opponent's hand, and that's all it's really good for. And while the reason I give it a 4 out of 5 is just because it's highly unlikely that it will fit into all Priest decks, because there's so many good cards for Priest and Wild. Yes, you can. Sure, question mark. You wanna hop in on Discord? I'll move you to personal chat. Just hop in any of the lobbies. I'll review Lady in White, and then I'll go ahead and do that. Speaking of Lady in White, it's a broken card. This new Kaliseth High Roll, same idea. If you play this card on curve, the rest of your deck that is built around this card just becomes insane and unbeatable. If you don't play this card on curve, your deck is still mediocre, but chances of winning are low. Literally a better Kaliseth, and yeah, that's all I have to say. It's self-explanatory from there. Coffin Crasher doesn't have the support it needs. Maybe in one expansion or two, this ends up becoming a really top tier card, but hey, for now it's pretty bad. What's up? The stream can't hear you. Say something.
Can you hear this?
Yeah, they should be able to hear that. Okay.
Alright.
Moving on to Vivid Nightmare. I'm gonna keep the 1/5s because this is also 1 out of 5. Choose a friendly minion, summon a copy of it, 1 health remaining. When you realize that Barnes is a 4 mana 3/4, summon a 1/1 from your deck, this card is just bad. It's literally a worse Barnes, so. Gonna go.
Shout out to Shrek.
Yeah. Glitter Moth. Odd Priest lol. That's all I'm gonna say. Not gonna see play. How you doing, Dan? I'm trying to keep myself awake by doing this great stream.
Yeah, I'm good. I was just turning on the stream to put myself to sleep, actually.
Wow.
Kind of the opposite.
I'm glad I'm so entertaining, you know?
Yeah, I actually canceled my daily viewing of Property Brothers to this.
I feel very happy. So, moving on to Rogue, we have Cutthroat Buccaneer. The reason this is a 3 out of 5 in Standard is because literally just Rogue lost all their weapon buffing in minions because everything rotated out. So, this is a bad card, but if you don't have any good cards to play, and you need weapon buffing, you need to play this card. So, Blink Fox, 4/5 for Standard, and 2 out of 5 for Wild. 3 mana 3/3 draw 0.5 is really good. Beast Tag doesn't really mean anything. I've been noticing that Blizzard is recently likes slapping Beast Tags onto everything, except they have no Beast synergy for something that isn't Druid or Hunter, so it doesn't mean much. Still a really good card though to play in tempo. Tess Greymane. You see this card and you're like, wow, it's a 6/6 legendary that can replay 8 cards. Insane. And then you read that the target's chosen randomly. And the cards are random in the first place. And then you realize it's like a discount Yogg-Saron. and it's bad. I'll give it 2 out of 5 in standard for the meme potential, just
Is this
because
viable for a hero replacement card?
no, this is just trash. The reason I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 is because people will experiment with it in Miracle, because it seems like it looks like such a great value card. It's an 8 mana 6/6, replay every card you played from another class. But the way you get those cards is random in the first place, and even once you get them, the targets are chosen randomly. So, too much variance to be a good card.
Too unpredictable.
Pickpocket, lol. So this card is it's just why Echo cards are bad. You have a card that is worse than its 1 mana variant at 2 mana, except it's even worse than what a 1 mana variant would be. Like, okay, to probably explain this, Hallucination is a 1 mana discover a card from your opponent's class. So this removes the discover and costs 1 more mana for Echo. So that basically takes an extra 1.5 mana just for Echo, and there's no way that's even close to viable. Speaking of which, Miss Wraith, Echo isn't good enough to play this card. You would, at the best case scenario, you're playing this with 3 Echo cards, all of which are trash, and if you assume your Echo cards cost an extra 1.5 mana, you're paying that up front on this card. +1/+1 isn't worth 1.5 mana, so the whole pack is just bad. This continues being a 1/5 for both. Speaking of 1 out of 5s for both, this is gonna go on for a while. We have Spectral Cutlass. It's a 4 mana 2/2 weapon with lifesteal that gains +1 durability when you play a card from another class. Kingsbane is a 1 mana 1/3 which returns to your deck once it is destroyed, which you can buff with lifesteal and make better than this card for less mana. And it doesn't disappear once it's destroyed. This card is bad. Play Kingsbane instead. Cursed Castaway. Rush, Death Rattle, draw a combo card from your deck. 6 mana 5/3. If you compare it with Leroy Jenkins, Leroy is 1 mana less. It's a 6/2. It dies. This card also assumingly dies when you play it. Leroy doesn't have a pirate tag and doesn't draw you a card when it dies, but Leroy has charge, not rush. In a tempo deck, Leroy is better. In a Miracle deck, Leroy is better. In Kingsbane deck, this is probably better because of the Slide Pirate synergy as well. But will Kingsbane be viable? No. And does Kingsbane have cards that are better than this? Yes, it does. 1 out of 5 for both. Oh boys. Cheap Shot. Deal 2 damage to a minion. Echo. You literally have a 0 mana card that deals 2 damage to a minion. And you're just paying 2 mana so you can repeat it up to 5 times. Even though Eviscerate also costs 4 mana. Trash card. 1 out of 5. Wanted. 4 mana, deal 3 damage to a minion. If it kills, add a coin to your hand. The only reason this isn't a 1 out of 5 in standard, the only reason is because Counterfeit Coin is rotating out, and currently a tier 2 deck runs Counterfeit Coin and needs a replacement in Miracle Rogue. It's probably going to be a 1 of. And yeah, really terrible card. Deal 3, valued at 4, and only if it kills, you add a coin to your hand, which still values this at a 4 mana, deal 3, make it a 3 mana if you actually kill, which is still trash. Face Collector. Guess what? It's a 1 out of 5 for both. Really bad card. The argument that is made pro this card is that, hey, if you play it on 6, you play face, face, Shadow Step on 7, you play face, 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 you complete the Rogue Quest and then play the Rogue Quest on 8. You usually complete Rogue Quest before 8 anyway, so bad card. I just realized I rated basically every rogue card in Wild with 1 out of 5, except Fox. Shaman! Oh boy, this is gonna be a long one. Instantly gonna just 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5. I'm gonna start speeding through these. It's just a really good card. Discovering a Battlecry minion, no drawbacks, really good. Same rating actually applies to Zap. It's slightly worse Backstab, but Backstab is one of the best cards in the game. Angler, it's okay for the quest and standard. Same for Wild, gets a 2 out of 5 for both. Not the greatest card, but it lives. This card is pretty bad. Or then I won't get into why it's bad that much, but it's a 2/2 plus 2/2, and then you can get a random elemental in your hand if you're giving this to an elemental. There's better card generations that we will go over. I'm gonna skip Shudderwalk to save me some time. Totem Crusher, it's 1 out of 5, 1 out of 5, 4 mana, 2/3. Isn't enough. You realize you're destroying something that's worth 2 mana to gain +2/+2, except you're destroying it, so that's not too great. Bog Shapper, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 5. Terrible card. Whenever you cast a spell, draw a minion from your deck. If this gave you a random minion, it would be a completely different story, but it's simply drawing you a card, and it's already priced at 7 mana for a 4/8, which isn't good. And our last 1/5/1/5 is also Witch's Apprentice. Add a random shaman spell to your hand. Taunt 0/1. Random shaman spell I believe is valued at 0.7 right now. Draw. So it's a pretty bad card. If you compare it to Babbling Book, which saw no play, it's worse. Now we move on to actually good cards. Shudderwalk. There's literally an OTK deck that people have already made with this card, and it can be played at 10 mana. 5 out of 5 for standard because of the OTK potential. Wild is 3 out of 5 just because OTK is much slower and you just get bodied by Jade Druid and Handslock. And Giant's Lock. So, Hagatha the Witch is a 3 out of 5 in standard and a 2 out of 5 in Wild. There's just not enough value. Up front, you're paying 8 mana for a Hellfire that doesn't even damage your opponent with 5 armor. That's pretty bad. The idea of a random shaman spell, you're drawing 0.7 would be priced at like 0.5 mana, so technically you would be getting this card's worth after playing 8 minions. If you get to the point where you play 8 minions after playing such a terrible card, then you're probably winning the game anyway and those shaman spells aren't helping, but because we're heading to a control focused meta, this gets a 3 out of 5 because it's really good in control. Ironic, actually. Finally, the Eel. The Eel gets a 4 out of 5. I actually wanted to do this 5 out of 5, just because even Shaman won't be a thing. If even Shaman was a thing, this would arguably be the best card in the set. But even Shaman won't be a thing. A 2 mana 2/3 is okay by itself. Beast Tag is an okay bonus. And then it's also a deal too. Together, this whole package is just too OP. But we're not going to see even Shaman, so I sadly can't give this a 5 out of 5. Feels bad. And yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do. We have 2 more classes left. Okay, I'll do Warlock and Warrior. And then I'll do Neutrals another day, because Neutrals are just as much. So let's do Warlock. Actually, am I halfway through the card set? Let me check. I just want to split this in 2, so. Yeah, I'm actually halfway through the card set. So I'll actually do a 2-part thing of this. I'm gonna end it here, because I'm actually getting kind of tired, so. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I will come back with Warlock Probably Friday. I know we'll be 1 day into the expansion, but that shouldn't make that much of a difference. The whole first month of the expansion is always a fiesta with people trying stuff out. Spoiler, these two cards right here are broken, so you may want to try these out. But nevertheless, thank you guys for watching. My voice is finally dead, and I'm ready to fall asleep, so I'll see you guys next time.